Decoded.
Welcome back to Book Decoded. Today, we're going to be cracking open Atomic Habits by James Clear, a book that's all about small changes leading to big results. Forget those drastic overhauls. We're talking tiny tweaks, atomic habits that can snowball into something incredible. Ever wonder why those overnight successes always seem to come out of nowhere? Well, get ready for some surprising insights, because Atomic Habits reveals why they're not so sudden after all. We're even going to talk about how a simple change of clothes could change your life.
It's fascinating how we often get caught up in the need for massive action, thinking that's the only way to achieve real change. But Clear brilliantly challenges that notion, arguing that these tiny, almost invisible changes are the real drivers of long-term transformation.
It's like that saying, you don't need to be perfect, just 1% better each day. But how do those little bits actually add up?
That's where the plateau of latent potential comes in. Clear uses this great analogy of melting an ice cube. Imagine slowly raising the temperature, but giving up right before it hits 32 degrees. You might think, what was the point? But all that heat was building up, unseen. And it's at that critical point, 32 degrees, that you suddenly see the massive shift from ice to water.
So we're often giving up right before the breakthrough, thinking our efforts are wasted.
Exactly. We get discouraged because we don't see immediate, flashy results. But it's those consistent, tiny changes that build the momentum for real, lasting transformation. Think about it. Those overnight successes we see, they're usually years of unseen effort behind them.
So it's not about some magic formula. It's about putting in the work, even when it feels like nothing's happening.
Right. And what's really interesting is Clear's focus on identity-based habits. It's not just about doing something. It's about becoming someone, he says. Behavior that's incongruent with the self won't last. So if you want to write every day, it's more effective to start seeing yourself as a writer, not just someone trying to write more.
So it's almost like we're voting for the identity we want with each action we take.
Exactly. Every time you write, you cast a vote for writer. Every workout is a vote for athlete. Those small votes add up to the evidence that supports your new identity. It takes the pressure off needing to make huge changes overnight and lets you focus on those consistent actions that shape who you become.
So how do we actually turn this idea into something actionable? Where do we even begin?
Well, Clear gives us this practical framework called the habit loop. It's a 4-stage cycle: cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue is any trigger that prompts a behavior. Think, seeing your running shoes by the door.
And that cue triggers a craving, the desire behind the habit, right? So craving that runner's high.
Yeah.
Or the feeling of accomplishment after a good run.
Right. Then comes a response, the actual habit itself, going for the run. And finally, the reward, the positive outcome that reinforces the habit and makes you want to repeat it. So you see the cue, it triggers a craving, you perform the habit, get the reward, and bam, the cycle starts all over again.
Our brain is basically a prediction machine, always trying to figure out what's coming next. And as we repeat a habit, our brains become more efficient at predicting the outcome, making the loop automatic. No more conscious effort needed.
Exactly. But that automatic nature can make it tough to break bad habits or build new ones once it's ingrained. You need to consciously disrupt that automatic loop.
So how do we actually break free from those bad habits and get positive changes?
That's where Clear's 4 laws of behavior change come in. He gives us a framework to make good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
All right, so we know the what and the why of habits. Now for the how. Let's start with that first law. Make it obvious.
This is all about awareness. Clear suggests creating a habits scorecard. Simply list your current habits, both good and bad. Just writing them down can make you more conscious of what you're actually doing each day.
It's like we go through life on autopilot without really thinking about those little things we do. Seeing them in black and white makes you take a closer look and spot areas you want to change.
Exactly. Then to really get specific, Clear introduces this powerful tool called implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions. Sounds serious. What are those all about?
It's about being crystal clear about when and where you'll do a new habit. Instead of vaguely saying, I'll exercise more, you'd say, I'll go for a 20-minute run every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in my neighborhood.
So it's about removing any ambiguity and creating a concrete plan of action.
Precisely. Research shows that this simple act of planning can drastically increase your chances of following through. One study found that people who made specific plans about when and where they'd exercise were more than twice as likely to stick with it than those who relied on motivation alone.
Wow, that's impressive. And we can use this for any habit, right? Not just exercise.
Absolutely. Writing, meditation, reading, expressing gratitude, you name it. Just define the behavior, the time, the location.
Let's say I want to express more gratitude. My implementation intention could be, after I sit down to dinner, I'll say one thing I'm grateful for. That happened today.
Perfect. By having that predetermined plan, you're making it much easier for your brain to follow through. You're taking away that mental hurdle of having to decide when and where to do it.
It's so simple,
Yeah.
yet so effective. And it ties in perfectly with the idea of making habits easy. That powerful tool for making those good habits obvious.
You know, that really clicked for me. That specificity, the when, the where, the what. It really takes the guesswork out of it. It's like setting yourself up on autopilot for success.
Exactly. It leverages that prediction mechanism our brains are so good at.
Yeah.
But Clear doesn't stop there. He also suggests using habit stacking to build on existing routines. What is habit stacking all about?
It's essentially linking a new habit to one you already do. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 5 minutes.
So you're using that existing cue, pouring the coffee,
Yeah.
as a launch pad for the new habit, meditation. It's like hitching a ride on an established routine.
Precisely. It seamlessly weaves the new habit into your day, making it feel less like a chore and more like a natural part of your flow.
That's so smart. Now, what about the environment we're in? Clear talks about environment design as another way to make good habits obvious. Does that mean I need to redecorate my entire house?
Not necessarily. This is where those visual cues come into play. Claire gives this funny example. A sticker of a fly placed in men's urinals. Turns out, it significantly reduced spillage because men instinctively aimed at it.
Okay, that's hilarious, but also brilliant. A simple visual cue can really influence behavior without us even realizing it.
Exactly. So think about your own surroundings. Are they filled with cues that support the habits you want to build?
If I want to read more, maybe I should swap that phone on my nightstand for a book. Make it the first thing I see.
That's a great start. And on the flip side, think about making those bad habit cues less obvious. Clear talks a lot about reducing friction, making good habits easier and bad habits harder.
It's like having your gym on the way to work. It takes away that extra effort of going out of your way.
Right. Or if you're trying to eat healthier, having pre-cut veggies readily available makes that good choice a no-brainer.
And then there's the 2-minute rule, Clear's ultimate hack for making things easy.
Ah, yes. This is a game changer. The 2-minute rule says that when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
But how does that even work for something big, like writing a book?
You break it down. Instead of write a chapter, it becomes write for 2 minutes.
It's all about finding that tiny starting point that's so easy. You can't talk yourself out of it.
Exactly. Overcome that initial inertia. And you're much more likely to keep going. It's like tricking your brain into getting started than letting momentum take over.
Clear even suggests going further by making those bad habits difficult. He talks about Victor Hugo literally locking away his clothes to force himself to write.
Increase the friction for bad habits. Want to watch less TV? Put the remote in a drawer. Or even unplug it altogether. Make it inconvenient.
Okay, all of this sounds great, but willpower, or lack thereof, always seems to get in the way. How does Clear address the willpower factor?
He turns the whole idea of willpower on its head. He argues that instead of relying solely on willpower, we should design our environment to support our goals.
So it's less about being a stronger person and more about being a smarter one, using our environment to our advantage.
Exactly. He gives this fascinating example of the invention of the cash register. Before cash registers, employee theft was a huge problem. But the cash register made stealing nearly impossible by automatically tracking transactions. It wasn't about changing the employee's morality. It was about changing the system to make the desired behavior automatic.
It's about setting ourselves up for success by automating those good habits and making the bad ones harder to indulge in.
Right. And in our digital age, we have even more tools. Think automatic savings plans, website blockers, apps that lock you out of social media. We can use technology to make those good habits almost inevitable, and the bad ones way harder to access.
It's like how binge watching became a habit. Netflix automatically plays the next episode, making it easier to keep going than to stop and think.
Yes. But Clear also cautions us about becoming too reliant on technology to the point where we only engage in activities that require minimal effort. While technology can be a powerful tool, it's important to use it mindfully. We have to make sure we're still making time for those activities that require effort, but ultimately lead to greater fulfillment.
This whole make it easy approach is so practical. But what about that feeling of satisfaction? We talked about the reward stage in the habit loop. How do we make sure our habits are actually rewarding?
That's where Clear's fourth law comes in. Make it satisfying.
Okay. I'm all ears.
This law acknowledges that. Our brains love instant gratification. But the benefits of good habits often come later. So how do we bridge that gap?
That's the million-dollar question. We're wired for that instant payoff.
Right. Clear emphasizes finding ways to make the process itself rewarding, not just focusing on the end goal. Enjoy the journey.
It's like finding joy in the act of creating art, not just being excited about the finished product.
Exactly. And one way to do this is through habit tracking.
Habit tracking.
Yeah.
That sounds a little tedious.
It might seem that way,
Yeah.
but it can be incredibly powerful. It's simply the act of recording your progress, marking off days on a calendar, using an app, or keeping a journal.
So it's about creating a visual representation of your consistency,
Mm-hmm.
seeing those wins add up.
Yes, that visual proof can be incredibly motivating. It's like a tangible reminder of the votes you're casting for that desired identity. Plus, there's a real sense of satisfaction that comes from seeing that chain of successful days.
I can see that. It's like a game. You don't want to break your streak.
Yeah, exactly. But Clear also cautions against becoming too fixated on the numbers. He talks about Goodhart's law, which states that when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. We can get so focused on hitting a specific number that we lose sight of the bigger picture.
So it's about using habit tracking as a tool for motivation and feedback, but not letting it become the main focus.
Right. It's all about finding that balance. And it's important to remember that even with all these strategies, there will be days when you slip up. We're all human.
That's realistic. So what does Clear suggest we do when we inevitably miss a day?
He gives this simple but powerful advice. Never miss twice.
Never miss twice. I like that. Get back on track as soon as possible.
Exactly. View a slip-up as a temporary setback, not a complete derailment. And he also talks about the importance of accountability.
Having someone to help you stay on track.
Yeah.
Provide that extra nudge.
Yes. Our brains are wired to respond more strongly to immediate consequences, even if the long-term benefits of good habits are greater. That's where an accountability partner can be so valuable.
So having someone to share your goals with, someone who can check in with you and celebrate your wins.
Right. Clear even suggests creating a habit contract.
A habit contract, what does that look like?
It's a written agreement outlining your commitment to a habit, including consequences for not following through. You can even have an accountability partner sign it to make it more official.
It's like adding that extra layer of external motivation to keep you going.
Precisely. He shares this funny and inspiring story about an entrepreneur named Brian Harris, who created a habit contract to help him lose weight.
What kind of consequences did he include?
If he missed his dietary targets, he had to pay his trainer $100. If he skipped his weigh-ins, he had to give his wife $500 to spend however she wanted.
Wow, those are some serious consequences.
They were, but the funniest part was that if he didn't do his sprints, he had to wear an Alabama hat to work every day for a quarter. And he was a die-hard Auburn fan.
That's brilliant. I can definitely see how that would provide some extra motivation.
It worked, with those consequences. And his wife and trainer as accountability partners. He reached his weight loss goals. It's about making the cost of inaction more immediate and tangible.
This has been so insightful. We've covered so much ground, from the habit loop to the 4 laws of behavior change. What are some of the nuances of habit formation that Clear dives into? And how do we find the habits that are truly right for us? Is there a secret formula for that?
It's a great question, and one that Clear tackles head-on. He dives into how our individual personalities, and even our genetics, can play a role in what habits come easily to us.
So are you saying some people are just naturally predisposed to certain habits? Like maybe I'm destined to be a couch potato because it's in my genes.
Not exactly. While our genes do provide a blueprint, they don't dictate our destiny. Think of it as a starting point. Our genes might influence our tendencies. Maybe you're naturally more introverted, so building social habits might take a bit more effort, but it doesn't mean it's impossible.
So we're not limited by our nature. We can still choose the habits we want to cultivate.
Absolutely. And when it comes to finding those right habits, Clear recommends an approach he calls the explore-exploit trade-off. It's a bit like a strategic game plan for habit formation.
Explore, exploit. It sounds intriguing. What's the game plan?
Early on in any new endeavor, it's crucial to explore different options, try new things, experiment, see what sticks, cast a wide net and gather information.
It's like that initial phase of discovery, trying different hobbies, exploring career paths, before you find the one that truly clicks.
Exactly. Then once you've explored enough, you shift to exploiting, focusing your energy on the habits that have proven to be most effective and rewarding for you.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between exploration and exploitation. But even when we find those habits that feel like a perfect fit, there's another hurdle, boredom. It's like the initial excitement fades, and it becomes harder to stay motivated.
Yes. The boredom factor. Even the most engaging habits can become mundane over time. Clear acknowledges this reality. He points out that even elite performers get bored. But he offers a strategy to combat this: variable rewards.
Variable rewards. That sounds interesting. What's the concept?
It's about adding an element of surprise
Yeah.
to your reward system. Instead of getting the same reward every time, you mix it up. Think of it like gamifying your habits.
It's like those slot machines. You never know what you're going to get. So
Yeah.
you keep pulling the lever, hoping for that big win. That element of unpredictability keeps you hooked.
Exactly. And research shows this can make habits more engaging and even addictive. Clear suggests applying this principle to any habit. If you're building a writing habit, try different writing prompts, explore new genres, or join a writing group for that social element of surprise.
Keep things fresh and exciting. I love that. So we've explored the science, the strategies, the nuances. But what's the final piece of advice Clear leaves us with?
He circles back to a fundamental principle: the importance of reflection. It's not just about doing the habits, it's about taking the time to think about them, analyze them, and refine them.
So it's about having a mindset of continuous improvement, always looking for ways to get better.
Exactly. He gives examples of top performers, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, who all have a regular practice of reflection. They analyze their performance, identify areas for improvement, and adjust their approach accordingly.
It's about having that feedback loop, not just for the habit itself, but for the entire process of habit formation. What an incredible journey this has been. As we wrap up our deep dive into atomic habits, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
For me, it's the power of those tiny changes, the idea that we don't need to overhaul our entire lives to see real progress. Just focus on those small, consistent actions and watch them compound over time.
I completely agree. It's about embracing the power of 1% better each day. And the beauty of Clear's approach is that it's practical and accessible for anyone. He's given us a framework and a toolkit for habit formation. Now it's up to us to put it into action.
Absolutely. So as a final thought for our listeners, what's one tiny habit you'd like to build? And how can you make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying?
Write down your implementation intention right now. Define the behavior, the time, and the location. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. Just start small, be consistent, and watch those atomic habits transform your life. Thanks for joining us on Book Decoded.